parody article? Is this the
The-
Onion?
the-
No,
the-
this guy's
the
serious.
What has they achieved? What have you achieved? What
Now-
Eric Levitz, buddy?
For the people who only listening, the headline says the AOC left has achieved plenty, and I'm like, CJ, are we covering a parody article? Because there's no way anyone
It's not.
is seriously about to make this argument. Go ahead, CJ.
Now, you remember the article last week? I think we all covered it at some point. We didn't cover it together, but at some point, there was an article that said AOC is just another Democrat or something along those lines.
Right. Yep.
This is a direct response. He's writing this as a response. So he's going to refer to the writer in here. This is a response to that. So it's like AOC is just another Democrat. And then his response is the AOC left has achieved plenty. And guess who chimed in when he posted this article on Twitter? Jamal Bowman. Like, yeah, see, guys, we're doing something.
No way.
Yes, we'll get to his tweet. I have it. We'll get to his tweet. He quote tweets this article saying, see, guys, basically. But here we go. So I'll read a little bit, then I'll pass it to you in a little bit, Kit. AOC has proven once and for all that the left will gain nothing by engaging with the Democratic Party. Or so Freddie DeBauer, I think that's his DeBauer, argued in a column for The Intelligence this week. I think DeBauer's view is so mistaken as to betray a fundamental misunderstanding about both the substance of contemporary democratic policymaking and the obstacle to socialism in America. So he's basically setting it up to say, basically, they need to be graded on a curve. Is that what do both of
so essentially
take that to mean that also? Go
ahead.
Did
the same thing. Remember when I think it was Lance from the Surf, that guy, he was like, there are a lot of people who have criticism because AOC didn't implement socialism overnight. And I'm like, sir, we just asking her not to support breaking rail strikes. like the bar is very low. And she's not, we're asking for her not to support war, to leverage her vote. She's doing none of those things. No one even asking her to be a socialist at this point. People are just like, can you please do something competent? Please? But go ahead, Ken.
Oh no, that was I was good.
I would like to add in here something. Okay, so obviously, for those of you who have been following along, who've been listening to RBN or Dissidence or HardLens Media, look at AOC's voting track record. What have we gotten? Just word salad and performance art. That's it. Nothing substantial to make our lives better. Nothing to shock us into doing more into this electoral system. It's been nothing but performance and theatrics. If I want to watch a play, I'm going to pay money to see a play. But if I want to see a leader lead, I want to see them lead. AOC has delivered none of that.
All right. I think I'm saying his name right. DeBauer. Is that how everybody would pronounce it? DeBauer. DeBauer has many complaints. Yeah, DeBauer has many complaints with AOC, one of which seems reasonable. He notes that it is difficult to discern a coherent logic to when AOC chooses to cast and understand these writers' descriptions, their adjectives they're choosing to use, and what they're trying to get you, what side they're trying to get you to go to. So let's listen to this. To cast an ineffectual protest vote, it's ineffectual. Protest vote, and when she chooses to pragmatically, yeah, that's smart. That's like you being level-headed. Pragmatically support imperfect legislation.
Pragmatically break strikes. Pragmatically fund Nazis.
Despite her criticism of Israel's subjugation of Palestinians, she declined to vote against U.S. funding for the Israeli military in 2021. Yes, she was willing to cast the sole Democratic vote against Joe Biden's budget last year on the grounds that it provided expanded funding to immigrations and customs enforcement. DeBauer is puzzled by this. If AOC sees value in symbolic protest votes, why didn't she cast one to protect Israeli apartheid? This seems to be some sort of backwards logic. Like
he's trying to set up the argument, I think.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Yeah. it's not like she's ever going to win New York most ardent pro-Israel voters anyway. This is a fair question, but it doesn't strike me as an important one. It's not important. The AOC that AOC voted, listen to this, guys, that AOC voted present instead of no during the House landslide vote in favor of funding Israel's Iron Dome was literally no consequence. So it's like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Who cares? That vote to break a strike, if she voted the other way, it would have still went through. So who cares? It's inconsequential. But then that's the whole reason she should not be making said vote. That is the whole reason.
You should be raising a ruckus.
Strike when your vote is not
that's
needed.
the key.
Go ahead.
You should be raising a ruckus in those situations. It doesn't matter that shit passed or not. And that's why it's absurd that people focus so much on presidential politics. The people say, "Oh, I want to run the president so I can make a splash." If you really cared about making change, you run in Congress in a position you're more likely to win, and you can actually generate a ton of media attention as a member of Congress. You don't have to be a president to do that. Marjorie Taylor Greene says hi. Matt Gaetz says hi. AOC and the squad says hi. You can be a member of Congress and drive national discourse. Imagine if you are the no vote on every single pro-Israeli vote. And then when people call you up for it, you're like, yeah, let's hold a press conference. We're going to have a press conference. Let's go through this Israeli thing. Let's go through you guys' criticism. They don't do that because they're not leftist leaders. They're not one. They don't want the funk. They're not down with the fight. So people are like, Nick, we ever run president? Like, no. Like there's way more effective techniques. Like you can be a congressperson and shift political discourse. They do not. They choose not to. And he said it's not in no consequence that AOC don't vote for her values. No, the consequence is that you avoid and you duck these important conversations that is meant to shift the Overton window to the left. They duck these conversations. They duck these fights because they are failures as leftist leaders.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, that's hitting it right on the head. Whether she votes no or present, to this guy's point, is not really relevant. Whether the vote is close or not close is not as relevant as does she raise a ruckus like she promised to. That's the big thing. He's putting all the emphasis on the votes and whether the votes were of consequence or whether they were symbolic votes, whether they were present votes, whether they were no votes, right? All of that is of less importance than do you use your office the way Shama Sawant uses her office on the Seattle City Council, which is the way an activist uses their office. That was the main pitch of the squad, and they have showed really no interest at all in really delivering on any of that. I mean, to the extent that they do get out in the field, like AOC rallied, I think, once or twice with the UPS workers, but she joined their rally. ALU, she joined their rally when she was shamed into doing it, right? She doesn't organize her own events, right? Organize her own mass actions. That's what the theory of the squad was. Not do they vote present, no, in a landslide or a close or a symbolic vote or a pragmatic vote. I mean, that's all just real inside baseball stuff that is very much like besides the point.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'll even go a step further when we look at AOC and the whole squad. You know, when they first came into creation, especially Justice Democrats, when Kyle and Jane created that organization, the one thing that's been missing, or the main key thing that should have been added in when Justice Democrats came into fruition, was the idea of a contract or accountability in keeping these Justice Democrats in line so that, you know, they don't get co-opted by the Democratic Party. None of that was put into the foresight for Kyle or Cenk or the Justice Democrats. So as soon as they got elected into office, the squad was able to fly off or surf off the goodwill that they obtained in 2018. And since then, they've been able to protect themselves to where now they don't need the progressive movement and they could just play along and say things on social media that will get enough sheep to support them. That's why we really see why AOC isn't really afraid of being held accountable. She's okay. She knows that she can get away with it and still have, I guess, enough brain dead people to support her.
Brain dead people. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to emphasize one point and I'll pass it to you, Chad. You're like, oh, it's just bad votes. They voted for Hakeem Jeffries, fam. Fam, do you know how absolutely absurd that is? Hakeem Jeffries, who made it public, and not like we got WikiLeaks documents of him saying this stuff, like publicly saying, "I'm going to wage war against the socialists and the left in my party. I'm going to destroy
I'll never
the
bend the
Bernie
knee to
Sanders
democratic
left."
socialism. Yeah,
wasn't leaked emails. The stuff he just said casually.
Right.
He in Twitter he would tweet stuff before, especially before he became leader. After he became leader, he became more relaxed. But before he became leader, he was like openly would tweet belligerent shit about like the AOC and Bernie left, talking about how they destroying the party, and they voted for that guy. But according to this guy who wrote the article, yeah, he just voted for the enemy of our movement. Not a big deal.
All right. So DeBauer's more pertinent charge is that AOC has failed to win substantial ideological concessions from the Democratic Party, and that this is indicative of the left's more general failure to achieve anything through engagement with democratic politics, a failure that was foreordained by the Democratic Party's basic nature. What do you guys think? Because this to me is sort of spot on an analysis of the Democratic Party, so of what we kind of articulate every day in our streams, that these progressives are not doing anything to push them left. That's what this means about substantial ideological concessions. They're not doing anything to push them left. They're consistently moving to the right, and they are also being pulled to the right. But go ahead, Nick. You were going to chime in.
I'll pass it to Keem, but I was just wondering where the writer is going with it, because he's like, this is what the argument this guy is making.
Right, he's setting up that's what I'm thinking too.
Go ahead, kid.
No, he's setting up he's summarizing the other guy's argument that he's going to then try and dismantle. But what are we, 3-4 paragraphs in?
Yeah. So this is where he begins to give his side. So the left has won a lot more than nothing from engaging with the Democratic Party. This incredibly strong claim that despite Bernie Sanders, AOC, and a myriad of other progressive agitation, the Democratic Party has offered the left nothing is fundamental to DeBoer's perspective. It is why he finds it offensive that AOC would endorse Biden's reelection, even as the president faces no leftist challenger save Cornel West's Green Party campaign. And this is just a shout out. This is the line that Bree calls out from the writer, and she quote tweets him. It blows up. It kind of goes viral. She gets like 2,000 views or likes on it. And where there's the exchange with Marianne Williamson is this part here, because he says faces no leftist challenger.
Right.
So we'll get to that a little bit later. All right. So DeBoer insists that Biden's contempt for progressive goals has been so total as to leave leftists with little reason to support his reelection. And then he goes to quotes him. I don't need to read that part. Let's continue. Yeah, so we don't need to read that part. DeBoer goes on to suggest that the left's attempts to make change through engagement with the Democratic Party rather than through third-party politics or non-electoral organizing has been an abject failure. Now, I pause it here. How is that not how everybody on this panel would describe it? Is that not how we've already described it?
Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm still waiting to see how he debunks this. Like, it's absurd. Like most people who read these articles don't read the whole thing. So like the people reading it, they're probably like, yeah, okay, now what? I'm wondering why it's taking them so long. But go ahead, CJ.
There are a few problems with. Here's where he begins a little bit. There's a few problems with DeBoer's reasoning here. One small point is that Al Gore would have won if he hadn't been in an unusually bad candidate, and Al Gore would have won if Ralph Nader hadn't run for president.
Oh my God!
Mutually exclusive claims. They're not mutually exclusive, is what he's saying. So he's saying there's a problem with this last argument that is made. And I'll read that. No, I won't read it. But anyway, let's continue. In a close election, there are generally many different truthful ways of fulfilling in the statement. But for X, the outcome would have been different if in 2016 Jill Stein didn't win enough votes to have had a decisive impact on the race outcome. In 2000, I should say, Nader probably did. So in any case, DeBoer's more important claim of that, one, the Democratic Party does not give leftists anything to vote for, and two, socialists have no reason to engage in Democratic Party politics since all their efforts have been for naught, and three, the Democratic Party is structurally resistant to socialist change. For the moment, let's put aside that last bit. It is in the case that Democrats give leftists no reason to vote for them, or I'm sorry, let me say that again. He's giving you a question. Is it the case that Democrats give leftists no reason to vote for them, or that leftists have won no concessions from the party leadership since Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign?
Oh my!
To my mind, these premises are so obviously false that it is hard to understand how anyone familiar with the past few years of Democratic policymaking could actually believe that.
He said, consider Democrats' response to COVID recession. You mean where they gave COVID relief funds to the police? You mean that thing you definitely about to admit from your viewers?
Or
no, we're quite aware of Democrats' policies, and we talk about them on the show all the time. That's why we have critiques of them. So he's just gaslighting the reader and praying that he has a low info liberal reader that is reading this, because he still hasn't debunked the claim. He's just doing that smug Jen Psaki tactic where he just says something smugly. He obey you. Like, the Democrats have waged class war, and the position, the strength of the working class has gotten worse under Joe Biden. But go ahead, Keith, if you want.
We're just going to read a couple of more paragraphs, but I'll let you guys chime in. We're not going to read this entire article because part of the professional managerial class tactics is one of those CIA tactics. These long, drawn-out explanations that lead nowhere. There's no end path to their point. It's just to lead you nowhere. And then when you look up, it's like, I've been reading for 30 minutes and I have no idea what he was telling me.
Exactly.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
So,
studies show. Go ahead, Kate.
So reading this article, I mean, right off the bat, this guy is coming up with excuse after excuse about why it should be pragmatic, or even why we should reconsider supporting the Democrats when we still get nothing in return. Again, what have the Democrats delivered for us? Even when Biden got elected into office, did the squad, did Bernie Sanders hold Biden's feet to the fire? No. Even when they were trying to do that infrastructure bill, remember what's her name? Not Rashida. Who's the leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus again?
That would be
Jayapal.
Jayapal, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So remember how Jayapal was saying that she could talk to Manchin and Manchin's going to listen to her. But what did Manchin keep on doing? He kept on cutting it and cutting it and cutting it until poof, it disappeared into nothing. And then what did the Biden-Harris administration do? Oh, they have to listen to the Senate parliamentarian, a non-elected official that answers to the president and vice president that could be overruled by the president and vice president. What did Bernie Sanders do during the early first year of the Biden-Harris administration? Nothing. We have gotten nothing. In 2021, we had forced to vote for Medicare for all. We had the March for Medicare for all. We had the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting that was hosted by RBN. And then also we had the fight for minimum wage, too, that was given a thumbs down and a curtsy by Senator Sinema, formerly a Democrat, now a Maverick independent. And throughout all of that, did the Democrats deliver? Did we see anybody fight back? No, but we saw their sycophants like Cenk Uygur and Sammy Boy Cedar saying, oh, we got to just keep our powder dry and eventually they'll follow through. But we got nothing. So when I look at this article, this is somebody trying to defend their spouse after they were caught cheating on them. That's what this thing looks like. Like, no, the reason why I'm back with her is because she really likes me, guys. She gets me. She just made a mistake. Yeah, she was sucking those 15 dudes off, but I don't care. Like, come on, get the hell out of here.
let me continue. Consider that now. This is he's gonna kind of ramble off what he think he's making points as they're doing something. So here is going to be like the next 2 paragraphs as he's rambling a bunch of things. Consider the Democrats' response to the COVID recession. One of the less principled indictments of the Obama administration was that it mishandled the post-2008 recovery. Instead of fully replacing all the economic damage lost to the financial crisis, Democrats sought to give their stimulus bill from exceeding the arbitrary threshold of $1 trillion. In doing so, they prioritized an essentially superstitious fear of large numbers over minimizing joblessness. This is a stretch. As a result, 4 years into Obama's presidency, the U.S. unemployment rate remained above 8%. Between 2009 and 2020, many left-wing Democrats agitated for their party to embrace full employment microeconomic policies. AOC was among them. Then, when the COVID crisis hit, Democrats did as these progressives advised.
Hey, fam. This motherfucker's talking about the employment rate.
Oh God.
As if that's something that we progressives, instead of the wages, instead of the buying power, instead of what you're doing for labor, the employment rate is
also the big thing that he's leaving out of this so far, at least, who signed off on all this in 2020? Was Joe Biden president then? No, that would have been Donald Trump in 2020, which means that anybody could have gotten this through. Anybody could have gotten this through. Right? I mean, because it was a crisis moment where, and Trump actually, even in the transition while he was plotting January 6th, wanted to give a bigger stimulus than ended up going out. He wanted to give more.
Yeah.
So he's talking about how they pushed. Who'd they push? Did they push Joe Biden? He's talking about in the 2020 negotiations. What we're saying is they pushed Trump, and it was a Republican Senate, too.
I would also like to add further to what Keenan added in here, because I think what we all forget too, I think it was in March of 2020 when we first got that stimulus check of $1,300. And correct me if I'm wrong, if that amount was lower or higher. But Trump, after that March one, wanted to do one going up until the end of the election. So that would have been an additional 10 months of $1,300. So again, I'm very curious to see if Trump would have followed through on that. But before we could ever seen that happen, whether or not Trump would be sincere, who put a stop to it? It was Ice Cream Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And her reason why for putting a stop to it is because she wanted to hurt Trump. But ask yourself this, my fellow viewers who are watching us here on the Post-Duopoly show, who did that hurt? Donald Trump, or did it hurt you? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of us, even though that money would have disappeared or some of us wouldn't have gotten it, I think a lot of us would have liked to get in the attempt or the idea of getting $1,300 to get us through 2020. Yes, it's nothing but crumbs, but God damn it, I mean, Trump wanted to give that to us, and who put a stop to it? It was Nancy Pelosi. And even when the Democrats were called out for that $600 stimulus, what happened afterwards? That $1,400, to which the Democrats said, "Oh yeah, that $1,400 and $600 is your $2,000." No, I'll take your money.
That was what I was talking about, Kit.
Yeah.
In that lame duck, Trump, even after he lost, right, and was either planning to overthrow the government on the January 6th or planning to leave, he wanted a bigger stimulus round in the lame duck, even after he had lost. And we didn't end up getting that.
Yeah. So it does answer it in these headlines. So where Democrats have power, where Democrats have power, the left wins more policy gains. That's a point. And then he goes in detail here.
Aren't Democrats doing Top City? I'm just saying.
Yes, exactly. Then listen to this other point. This other point here. The Democratic Party is structurally resistant to socialism. So is the United States in 2023. What the hell does that even mean? That's one and the same. So does the United States. The Democrat and Republican Party makes up the United States government. So that's why it would be that. These are points that are not points.
Yes. Because I'm literally as perplexed and baffled as you are. Is that supposed to be an argument towards us not advancing socialism? The current state of socialism is weak, so we should now advance it. Hey, since socialism is weak, we might as well join breaking strikes. What kind of argument is that? It's so ridiculous to say. Well, this is how it is, so you guys shouldn't complain about it. That's essentially what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me read a couple more paragraphs here, and then we're going to close this out. Where Democrats have power, the left wins more policy gains. There is no doubt that Biden's legislative record leaves much to be desired, but in most cases, you guys, these inadequacies testify to the importance of electing more Democrats.
Oh, here we go again.
Not the pointlessness of electing any.
That was the sentence that jumped out at me when I read this over.
Don't CJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't California have a Democratic supermajority, right?
Supermajority, yeah.
In my state, they got a supermajority too.
But Skid Row is this though?
But that supermajority doesn't have voted down, refused to bring up Medicare for all, and our Skid Row problem, our unhoused problem is, I think, second in the nation.
I'm legitimately confused because based on the argument that this scholar is making, if you ever had a Democratic supermajority, that would lead to a paradise, a utopia of the workers, right?
Right.
There is no utopia.
If only we had a case study. If only if.
Right.
You guys see how these duopoly arguments are completely fact-free? But go ahead. I think someone wants to chime in. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's look at what's happening in California. There's a massive amount of unemployment. There's a massive amount of homelessness. There is a drug epidemic taking place there. There's unchecked corruption. At this point, California, many of the buildings there in that state are becoming abandoned. So, yeah, there's a quote-unquote utopia, but what kind of utopia is it? It's only for those who have money. The rest of the people are being screwed out, which is why there's an exodus happening. Vote more Democrats, vote harder, poor people. That's what this article from the Intelligencer is saying to us. Vote harder, poor people. Vote Democrat. Don't think for yourself.
Literally, the Democrat liberal paradise of San Francisco literally instituted segregation based on class. You guys understand? Right. San Francisco is a liberal democratic paradise, but they have segregation based on class. People talk about segregation of race, but the policies of neoliberal capitalism lead to segregation by class, where poor and working people cannot live there. You got the rich, you got the homeless. San Francisco is a shithole, a beacon of what capitalism, no matter what, whether you had gentle policies or do you have the rough Mitch McConnell style capitalism. Doesn't matter. Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, they both lead to worker exodus towards away from cities, the decrease of their buying power. The workers are serfs in San Francisco unless you're a big tech or part of the managerial class. And that is, you are lucky enough to pay 60% of your income to live amongst your oligarchs, live amongst your betters. If you're lucky enough to do that. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, guys. There's no difference.
Let me read this last paragraph here. In his litany of AOC portrayals, DeBauer cites the Congresswoman's decision to vote for the American Rescue Plan, even after Senate Democrats stripped out its provision raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, meaning they stripped out the progressive provisions. You should have voted against it.
Right.
By citing this as an instance in which AOC portrayed the left, DeBauer seems to affirm that raising the minimum wage to $15 is a goal of socialists, and that securing such reform would qualify as more than nothing. So I'm trying to understand, is he saying that if they got it, this would have been more than nothing? I'm not understanding sort of his point here about they stripped it out and she voted for it. He points that out as that being one of the portrayals. You voted for it after they stripped out all the good shit. And now you're saying DeBauer seems to affirm that raising the minimum wage to 15 is a goal of socialists, and that securing such reform qualifies for more than nothing. So is the reason why Democrats failed to enact such minimum wage in 2021 because the party is structurally incapable of supporting that policy? Or is the reason that Democrats posed a single vote Senate majority that year, which was reliant on a representative from a state Donald Trump won by? So this person is saying, I can't believe this is so flimsy. He's basically trying to say that are they incapable of passing it, or was it because of Joe Manchin? Was it because of Kristen Sinema? So he's basically saying, is it the Democrats, or was it just two rotating villains? As to say that, no, the Democrats, you can get some things through it. As he's not taking into account the show that our politics put on to pretend like they're going to do something. He gives credit for the pretending part, for the virtue signaling. That is what he wants to give credit to as accomplishments. That's what I take from the article. Any last comments on this article? What you take from it? What can you glean from what he is trying to point out from what we've read?
I'll keep it simple.
I'll keep
it simple. What this is the light touch of the beginning salvo of the vote blue no matter who people trying to guilt us into supporting Democrats. That's what this is. This is their attempt of trying to make us fall in line before the heavy bullying happens. It's sort of like the warning that you see like from the mobsters who say, hey, listen, look, don't make us be a bad guy and break your windows, but you're going to need some protection, and you're going to want to listen to us and give your dues to the boss, okay? Don't make us be a bad guy. And that's what the vote blue no matter who people are going to try and do, to which I have to say, people, we already know what they're going to say to us. So then we get ready to push back at them and show them our violence, show them our ability with sharp words, and also live rent-free in their head on election day, because I'm going to take a selfie and say, hey, I voted third party. And so I'm going to purposely tag all the liberal hashtags and just be their bad guy, because I embrace it. And I say we embrace our villain arc. All those who want to be free thinkers, embrace your inner villain. Now's not a time to be nice or be polite, because this is just only the beginning until it gets worse.
Yeah, I would second that. And I think the only thing that I would add is that, one of the reasons why that article was so long and labored is because I think the people who are trying to sell this realize to some extent they're in the last stages of being able to actually convince people with these arguments, because they had their chance, right? That Build Back Better negotiation was their last chance. That was their last chance to prove that electing Democrats would be worth something. And not only did they not pass the Build Back Better, but they did not even try and pass it piecemeal, item by item. They didn't even try to get a standalone paid leave bill through the House and Senate, even though Joe Manchin himself was on the record saying he supported paid leave, right? So that was really the last straw, because the thing is, the country gave them power. Like, they gave the Democrats the chance to prove that they could use power to win gains for people, and they did not do it. And so with that fresh in everybody's mind, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to make these kinds of arguments moving forward. But I do agree with Kit that that's what he was trying to do there.